Hi, everyone. I see people joining. We're going to give it just 1 or 2 more minutes for everybody to trickle in, and then we'll get started. Thank you so much for joining today. If you're just joining, welcome.
Hey, I'm going to change the topic to everybody. Hey, hi, not really, but hi, everyone. This is Lou Adler. What I'd like you to do is, as we get ready and before we begin the recording, if you could just put in chat some of the biggest hiring challenges you're facing now, and then Tommy and I will kind of address those ad lib as we kind of go forward here.
And as you do that, we'll get started with the webinar in 30 seconds to a minute. Okay, hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. It looks like people are coming in from the chat. Thanks so much for joining today. My name is Brie Larea. I'm helping out with product marketing at Comeet, one of the co-sponsors of this webinar, along with performance-based hiring by Lou Adler. Next slide, please, Lou.
Oh, I'm sorry. God, you can already tell this seminar is not going to be that good if I can't even make the slides move forward.
Oh, no problem. Okay, great. So thanks again, everyone, for joining today. Here's the agenda we're going to be going over. We're going to first talk about the power of performance-based hiring, which you're probably familiar with if you've joined this webinar. We're going to talk about the big thing on everybody's mind, which is leveraging AI within that, applicant tracking systems and AI, and then what the future of recruiting really looks like. So that's the agenda. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. If you have questions, there's actually a specific box on your Zoom panel or on your Zoom that's for Q&A. So type your questions into the Q&A box, and at the end, we'll circle back to questions. And then also, if you have concerns that this will be recorded, it will be. So we'll send this recording out to you. So if anything happens, if you get kicked out, whatever, we'll be able to send this to you. Okay. Here are your speakers for the day. Lou Adler is the CEO and founder of performance-based hiring learning systems, a consulting and training firm helping recruiters and hiring managers around the world source, interview, and hire the strongest and most diverse talent. Lou is the author of the Amazon Top 10 bestseller, Hire with Your Head, the essential guide for hiring, getting hired, and LinkedIn Learning's performance-based hiring video training series. He's one of the top bloggers on LinkedIn's influencer program, writing about the latest trends in hiring, employment, and recruiting. Tommy Dikerman is an architect turned tech founder. He co-founded Comeet. It's a global applicant tracking system where he's the chief product officer today. He's originally from Israel, but he lives in New York. So I'll toss it to you, Lou. I think we're all really excited to hear this discourse today around AI.
Great. Thanks very much, Bri. I'm reading some of these challenges that are coming in. Not enough people can't interview accurately. People want too much money. People don't want to work on site. Now, some of those, the on-site one is a bit unusual, but I've been asking hiring managers, recruiters, talent leaders, business executives, what are some hiring challenges they're facing? And I've been asking that question since most of you were born, since 1978, and they're pretty much all the same. The one about on-site, that one's a bit different, but hopefully we can handle it. But I want to start off, and this is, I'm going to go back to 1990, because I think this is a pretty interesting thing. I had the opportunity to talk with business executives for mid-sized companies that were, say, 10 million in size to 250 million in size. And I'd always start these presentations off, and these are all presidents of companies, but I had an opportunity to discuss what I call now performance-based hiring. And I just said, tell me, and you guys might want to put this in chat too to make it a little bit interactive, if you've hired a great person and the candidate's been there at least a year, and you recognize this is really a good person, how would you describe that person? They're really, you've watched them on the job and they've been really effective. What are some words you'd use? How would you summarize this person? How would you tell everybody else, yeah, this is a great person because he or she does A, B, and C? Put A, B, and C in there, and I'll kind of give you the answer of asking this exact question to over 40,000 managers over the last 40 years. I've seen them come in here. They get the job done. They're eager. They're committed. They work hard. I mean, this is what people have told me year after year after year, and they probably did it before 1990, before I started asking the question. This is what a great person is, a great hire. After a year, they achieve results. They take responsibility. They don't make excuses. They get the job done. They're top performers. They work well with the team. They collaborate. They team. If they're a manager, they hire and develop people. They fit with the company and the culture. And they manage properly. They plan, they organize, they meet the goals, they meet their budget and all that kind of stuff. This is, I'm going to contend, probably since the dawn of time, this is probably what a great worker looks like. And those are the same adjectives you'd use. But then I ask candidates, then I look at their company's job description. I said, okay, let's see, we want to hire these kind of people. But I look on your job description, and it has a bunch of skills, experience, competencies, and behaviors that are must-haves. So I asked these executives, have you ever met someone who's got a different mix of experience as a top performer? And I said, of course. I said, and if someone has all those skills and experience, are they guaranteed to be a top performer? And they say no. So we've got this filter of how we filter people on a job description that doesn't predict performance and excludes half the population. That doesn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense in 1990. It doesn't make sense today in 2023. Now, to make matters worse, we get recruiters on the phone and we filter all these people who have the skills, experience, and competencies, et cetera. They got to be, before they even interview, they got to agree to the compensation. Before they interview, they got to agree to the title, agree to the location, they got to be interested in the job before they even start the interview. All of those factors are negotiable. And yet, they're not negotiable. They're filters. One is a filter, two is a filter. Then we conduct an interview and we judge candidates on first impression, good appearance, affable, articulate, confident, assertive. So these are the factors we use to hire candidates. Now, my question to you, and I'd like to ask everybody a question, and I've asked this to 40,000 managers since 1990, who would you rather hire? Someone who can deliver the results or someone's got all the skills, experience, and is a good interviewer? So I'll ask you the same question. Who would you rather hire? Someone who can deliver the results or someone who can meet the criteria of a great candidate? Yeah, 99.9% of the people I've talked to always say that. But now the big thing is, I say is, how well do the factors on the left predict the factors on the right? And the answer is they don't. Because you can have all of that stuff and be an underperformer and not have any of that stuff and be a top performer. Sometimes good candidates get nervous in interviews. Sometimes good candidates are interviewing quiet. Sometimes they'll negotiate the compensation. They'll work on site if it's a career move. So if we ask somebody, will you work on site before they know what the job is? It's a stupid question. Let me talk about the job. And if you feel this is a great career move, maybe we'll start working on site. Totally different mindset. Discuss the opportunity before you start filtering candidates on will they do this and will they take this money? Because the factors on the left don't predict the factors on the right. And this is the key thing, is that the process on the left is what I call transactional. We're hiring for the start date. What you get on the money is the title to fill a job, very transactional process, very impersonal process. The process that I recommend to hire a great person for the long term is called win-win hiring. And I tell candidates, if we move forward in this process, success will be measured a year from now on the first year anniversary date, where you, the candidate, say, I'm so glad I took this job. And the hiring manager says, I'm so glad I hired you. That is a different process, much more high-touch process. And I believe, well, no, I've been using this process ever since day one in recruiting and hiring, which is in 1978. But AI makes this process a lot more effective. But it basically says we got to stop doing every stuff on the left and start doing the stuff on the right. So now just let me ask you this way. Does that make sense? And we on, did this seminar make, or this webcast seem like we're going in the right direction, or did we lose some people? Tommy, that was a question. You could answer that question if you want, if we're losing it.
I also see responses in the chat, yeah. Okay.
So here's the idea that so now I got all these, you got to remember, I am talking, when I made that pitch to you folks, I made this pitch or a similar pitch for hiring managers, many, starting in 1990. And it was pure luck. And my next door neighbor said, you got to talk to these business groups. And these business groups all had these presidents of mid-sized companies. So it was kind of cool. Nonetheless, I tell people, everybody wants to end up with a great hire. Everybody wants to hire a great person, but you can't use a laundry list of skills, experience to attract these people. You got to start with a great job. And a great job is a series of performance objectives that look like a career move, not looks like an ill-defined lateral transfer. Then we got to find candidates who want to do that work. We don't need to talk to everybody. Right now, in an ATS system, it's about 140 to 1. 140 people apply, one person gets the job. That means that 139 people won't get the job, or they'll be aggravated. But now we have to have a good customer experience to make 139 people feel good, and expects to the one person. I said, no, it's a silly approach. Let's just find people who are competent and motivated to do the work. We'll pre-qualify them. We'll treat them all like kings. Yeah, only we talk to 10 or 15, but we'll make every one of them feel great. They'll give us referrals, and one of them will get the job. Different process. As a high-touch process. Number 3, we got to conduct an in-depth interview. But it's a two-way decision. We got candidates who want to see this job as a career move. We got a hiring manager says, hey, can I hire this person to achieve a win-win hiring outcome? We're hiring for the anniversary date, not the start date. That's a lot of work on both sides. Then we got to close the deal. And sometimes we don't have enough money in the budget. But if we can offer the best career opportunity where a year from now or 2 years from now, they're making 10 to 20, 30% more, that's the methodology we have to present. That's a different process. This is called performance-based hiring. It's designed to achieve win-win hiring outcome. Hiring for the anniversary date, not the start date. And when we define work, we define it as a series of performance objectives. So let me kind of give you a very, very quick story. And Tommy, you might want to input. My first real search assignment was for a plant manager in the automotive industry in 1978. I'd already worked for 10 years prior to that. Engineering, manufacturing background, finance, budgeting, planning. And I walked through and the hiring manager gave me, well, he was the president of the company, a list of skills, experience, and competencies. And I said this is January 1978. And I said, that is not a job description. A list of skills, experience, and competencies is a person description. A job description is what people need to do to be successful. I said, what does a person need to do? He said, we got to turn around the plant. I said, fine, let's walk through the plant. Spent an hour and a half walking through the plant, identified 7 things that needed to be changed that would turn the plant around. We define work as a series of 6 to 7 key performance objectives, KPOs, or the word OKRs, objectives and key results. And in a moment, maybe 10 or 15 minutes moment, I'm going to show you how you can ask that same question into Chat GPT and get a performance-based job description. Normally, it takes a couple of hours. With Chat GPT, any single job in the world, you can do in 15 to 20 minutes and be in the game. Game changer. Our approach is now we want to find candidates who are competent to motivated to do that. We're going to track the best in, not weed the worst out. And that's a strategic issue. Are we weeding people out who apply to a boring job, or are we attracting the best by showing them a career move? Different mindset, different strategy. We're not going to offer an ill-defined lateral transfer. We're going to offer a career move. And when we talk to candidates, we're going to find a bunch of great people, and we can do this on LinkedIn, find a bunch of great people who would see this job as a career move and are competent to do that work. That just opens a talent pool to everybody. Some of them will have a different mix of skills and experience. Some of them will have to negotiate the comp, but we're going to focus on, we're going to pre-qualify candidates who see this job as a career move and can do the work. If they can't do the work, it doesn't matter. Number 3, we're going to conduct an in-depth interview. Let me just give you the very, very quick course on interviewing, super quick course. If one of our performance objectives is to launch a new product in a year worldwide, and it doesn't matter what the product is, we're just going to ask the candidate, hey, we got to launch this new product in a year, and you got a team of 4 people to do it in a budget of $3 million. Walk me through something you've ever accomplished similar to that. We just dig deep into the candidate's accomplishments in comparison to the key performance objectives of the job. We have a kind of a structured interview, but we're digging deep into that. And it probably takes 10 to 15 minutes to fully understand that person's accomplishment in relationship to what we need done. Then we got to close the deal. And I tell candidates, this is what I tell candidates. Well, before I make them an offer, I say, do you want this? Forget the money. Do you really want this job? Forget the money. Do you really want this job? And when they can answer in detail, yeah, I want the job because I'm doing this kind of work. I want to work with these people. I want to work in this company. I see the work-life balance as appropriate, and I can see this as a place I can spend 2 to 3 years on a great career trajectory. If they can't answer those questions in detail, I tell them we're not going to make you an offer. But I also tell my companies and my clients is we got to give those candidates all of that information through the process. So if you want to hire a great person, you got to start with a great job and have a process that's designed to achieve these more win-win hiring outcomes. It's a system, not a series of steps. And this is what people, oh, I got to have a better interview. No, you don't have to have a better interview if it doesn't increase the idea that candidates can close. So we're thinking systems and strategy. And this is the other thing. We want our strategy or our tactics to tie to the strategy. The strategy is raise a talent bar. So why would you have more knockout questions if you're not raising the talent bar? That's just going to weed out the weak. So we do audits of companies' hiring processes. They're designed to be more efficient, weeding out the weak. No, I want to be more efficient, attracting better people. I mean, it's a totally different mindset. We have to embed the onboarding process into the hiring process. There's no reason now, here we have a series of performance objectives we discuss with the candidate for 2 or 3 weeks before the person got an offer. Well, we got to discuss them when they start. And we got to manage that person based on that. We got to deliver on that promise. This is what performance-based hiring is. That's what it takes to achieve a win-win hiring outcome. Let me ask you this. Feel free to ask any questions into the chat. I'll be happy to go off lib, but we're going to get Tommy into how do we do this on a technology platform and how do we do it with ChatGPT. And this is where ChatGPT really becomes the game changer here. Any questions coming in, Tommy, that you see or Bree?
Not yet.
What's a question you would have, Tommy, just thinking as you're a hiring manager as well as a presenter here? Anything
Yeah.
stand out to you on this whole idea?
First of all, I would say that for me, your book was an eye-opening, and I hope that everyone can see its potential, even though it's a brief introduction. As a manager, I actually checked recently, and I conducted about 650 interviews in Comeet, just in Comeet. I find it, I find the trajectory of what people go through when they just start hiring and as managers and as they develop really interesting. And I know it's not just me. I know people really crave this knowledge. We actually provided a public training for interviewing, and we actually had more participants than Zoom could allow at the time. And we were really surprised by this demand, but there is this wish from managers, interviewers to know how to interview better, how to really understand whether a candidate is the right fit. And I think that usually people think about the interview alone as the crucial step in the process that would define.
Let me do this, Tommy, let me just interrupt, because one question I just saw come through, which I think relates to the exact point. It was people think they're affable, friendly, extroverted, and all these kind of things. And how do you assess that during the interview? And let me just make this statement. I am a super cynic when I interview a candidate, super cynic. I don't trust anything anybody says. And the reason is I, as a recruiter, give a 1-year guarantee, which is what I call the win-win hiring outcome. The candidate has to be good at the end of the year, and the hiring manager still wants to hire him. So that's a tough deal to make. So by being super cynic is I use the Sherlock Holmes technique. And I remember a president of a company asked me this it was out of London. And he said, I'm hiring, and this guy was only 23 or 24, and he's hiring people 40 to 45. He said, all these people seem pretty good. They're older than me, but how do I know they're not jerks? And I remember saying this to him, which was the technique that I had used. I call it Sherlock Holmes, is the quality of the teams a person is assigned to is a good clue they're strong team members. So I just asked candidate, tell me about the team you were assigned to after you started working at 3 or 6 months. What happened? What was your role on the team? What happened to that team? Did anybody on that team ask you to be on another team subsequent to that. So I just track a candidate's team performance and how the person got selected to the team. Why did you get selected to the team? And frequently, I now know, is the person gets selected to the team because they're technically competent, good team skills, collaborative skills. So I start looking at, was this person a technical person assigned to some kind of cross-functional team? So all of a sudden, I'm looking at these accomplishments in the team makeup. I'm starting to understand how other people think about this person's team skills. I don't make that judgment myself as a candidate, as an interviewer. And that's the key. Other people, this person's worked in the workforce 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 years. There's enough evidence there to make a conclusion without you making a personal biased judgment about it. So that's how I kind of handle this. I think we got some other good, this session, Tommy, could go on for a long time, but I think we got to keep on going a little bit deeper into this. Is this my, okay, so let me just kind of give you a very, very brief story using AI. I think this is the one. Okay, yeah, this is the one. So ChatGPT came out, say December, but this was, so it's right after Christmas time. I have a friend of mine who I'd worked with for 5 or 6 years out of the UK. He is currently the senior director of software engineering for a big consumer products company that sells online stuff. Let's just leave it at that. And he and I talked about developing a performance-based job description for software developers that was kind of universal, that we could change. Now, I hadn't talked to him for about 1.5 years, but I just decided to go into ChatGPT and I created this prompt. I said, using a 1-year timeline, what are the major KPIs a strong mid-level front-end software developer would need to achieve in order to successfully upgrade a mobile app used for online purchasing, yada, yada, yada. That's what I put in. I got a phenomenal list, and I'll just highlight it. It was longer than this. I just highlighted it. Feasibility study, and it went by the end of the first month, design improvements by the end of the second month, implementation by the end of the fourth month. I mean, this was in-depth, step by step by step. I kind of summarized it to him, and then I called the guy up and I said, Brad, what do you think of this? He looked at it and said, this is phenomenal. I mean, he said, I think I would move this up here and I move this down here and I don't need this, but there are things I didn't even consider that we really need to do it. And I said, I'm looking for 20 people just like this. Then he asked me, do I want to do the search? No, I don't do recruiting. I mean, my whole life was a recruiter. I didn't want to do it. But the point was, almost instantly, I knew this job. And I was on a podcast yesterday, somebody out of Australia, they said, what's the one thing that you see as critical for recruiters and even hiring man? But he said, recruiters, he said, to me, this is the game changer. And it is a game changer. I don't think recruiters who don't understand the job at this depth of experience have any credibility with a candidate. So if you call up a candidate who's competent, motivated, probably referred, but whatever it is, and you present an opportunity to that person, and that candidate says, well, tell me a little bit about the job, and you can't define the job in this depth, you're out of the game. We don't need you. Recruiters are the sales reps for those hiring managers, and they have to know that product inside and out. In this case, the product is the job. And that's where, to me, ChatGPT is just a game changer in getting anybody into the job. I'm pretty good at hiring managers and general managers and directors of almost any function. I'm pretty good at hiring some engineers. I have an engineering background, but not at the software level. I know now I can assess candidates at the software level with ChatGPT, and I couldn't have done it before. To me, this is a game changer. And I actually pretty retired, I'm going to say last year. When ChatGPT came out, I said, this is a game changer. This is going to change how recruiting is done, how assessment's done, how management's going to be done. It is. So you can just tell I'm excited about this, Tommy. And Tommy knows because I've talked to him for a lot. This is, to me, is so powerful in the game. And I'm talking to a hiring manager who I know is a great hiring manager, 40 years old, he hired 600 people over his career. He looked, he said, I now know this job at much more in-depth level. And I can ask candidates, hey, we got to upgrade the design improvements. Walk me through what you need to do to get this. So it also starts the interviewing process. Sorry, Tommy, I'm kind of going on and on here. But the real idea is when you're defining work, think about outcomes, what a person needs to do to be successful, not the skills that a person has to be successful. And then the idea is, and I tell my clients, I will not compromise on that person's ability to do the work. but give me a relief on this mix of skills, experience, and competencies the person needs. Because if they can do this work, they have the exact mix needed. And you can't predefine it. You have to figure out, hey, can this candidate do that work in this environment with our set of situation? Game changer. And that's where ChatGPT really does change the game. Let me kind of summarize my personal point of view. The book that I've written at Tommy, I think this is the book you were referring to, Tommy. It's called Hire with Your Head. Feel free to buy it. That's not my point of this, though. This is the 4th edition of Hire with Your Head. The first one came out in 1997. But if I had to say the dominant characteristic is define the work as a series of performance objectives. If you're familiar with Gallup's Q12, what drives employee satisfaction, Q1 and the Q12 is clarify expectations. My idea of win-win hiring is hiring for the anniversary date, not the start date. That consists of a couple of key things. Firstly, define success as performance objectives. Spend more time. I put semifinalists on the bus. A semifinalist is somebody who can do the work, has been recognized for doing that work exceptionally well, and would see the job as a career move. I don't talk to any candidates who don't meet that criteria. What's the point? Because if they've got all the skills, but they don't see the job as a career move, it's all about a money move. No, it can't be. It's got to be a career move. I mean, I've worked on literally over 1,000 search assignments. Maybe 10% I had the best compensation. 90% of those placements was good comp, but not the best, but it was the best comp over 1 to 2, 3 years. And because we put the person on a faster career track. It's not the most comp you get on day one. It's the most comp you get in 3 years from now. I mean, but that's a hard decision to make when people think, comp. No, it's careers. And that's what we offer a person what I call a 30% career move. So this is what I tell candidates, although I tell candidates at the end, forget the money. Why do you want this job? At the beginning, I tell candidates, if this job doesn't represent a 30% non-monetary increase, don't take it. That 30% needs to consist of some job stretch, maybe 5 or 10% job stretch, meaning a bigger job. Maybe a faster growth track, another 5 or 10%. A more impactful job, another 5 or 10%. A more satisfying job, another 5 or 10%. So I want people to always think long-term, not short-term. And this is not, I think technology can do a very critical job to do the heavy lifting, but you got to get on the phone and talk to people. Changing jobs is a big decision. Can't be impersonal. Then you got to deliver on the promise. You do those things, you will hire better people every time. So I'm going to kind of go back to 1990 in 30 seconds. As I started doing this, but I've been doing this for a long time, a lot of HR people say, no, you can't do that. You got all these laws, all these regulations. So I talked to the #1 labor attorney in the United States, #1 labor attorney in the United States at the #1 labor firm. And I said, can I do this? He said, I don't think so. I said, read my book. He read it and he said, this is the greatest thing I've ever read. You can do everything I said is perfectly, at least in the United States. I know there's issues with respect to salary, but we're looking, here's my quick answer on salary. We're looking for a bunch of mid-level software developers. The salary range is from $100,000 to $200,000. If one of those jobs fits, we'd like to chat with you. I mean, just to me, that's what you do. You got to put the salary range in, but to me, it's a stupid law, but we got other issues with politicians other than that. But nonetheless, it is a law and we got to kind of live with it. But I tend not to advertise. So that's my other thing is, if you're wasting money on a boring job posting and posting salaries, it's because you got a bad strategy. So let me leave it at that. Tommy, I think it's up to you for right now. I need a break anyway here.
Yeah, thank you, Lou. So I'd like to take it from here to talk a little bit about, can you go back? Yeah, let's just stay here for a minute. Thanks. So we want to talk a little bit about how AI can fit into an ATS and then see how it all comes together with performance-based hiring, and talk a little bit about our vision for the future of recruiting. So just to give some background, we started Comeet about 10 years ago, mainly because we saw that there are many people involved in hiring, but they are not necessarily experts in what they need to do as part of their recruiting role. And we mentioned some of this in regards to interviewing, making those decisions about candidates early in the process and at the end who to hire. And we set out to build a recruiting platform that would empower everyone involved to do a better job in their recruiting role. And over the years, we introduced various tools to help our customers. to follow best practices and recruiting methodologies. And now where it gets even more interesting is really with the advancements of AI, which allow us to do so much more. So if you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so as you probably know, as talent acquisition leaders and managers, there are many challenges with implementing any process or methodology in the organization. Training people is a serious investment, and trainings needs to be repeated because of turnover. Of course, after implementing those methodologies, utilizing them can also be very time consuming. And of course, when we ask people, managers, interviewers to change their mindset about how to hire and really change the culture, that's a great challenge. So really, how can we help here? Next, Lou. And here, this is where it gets really interesting and where AI comes in, because it can help us not just with implementing recruiting methodologies, but can have a much greater impact on recruiting outcomes and company culture. So it can help with actually implementing and embedding those methodologies, but it can also help with reducing bias throughout the hiring process, improving the communication transparency with candidates, allow us to be more competitive when we want to close candidates, and obviously, of course, save a lot of time, be much more productive, and all of that without taking the human element, the people, out of the equation.
Can you give one example, Tommy, of how you've accomplished some of these things?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you go to the next slide?
Oh, sure.
Great. So, yeah, so imagine you're in your ATS. I'm sure all of you have an ATS, and you can actually use the power of AI within the platform that you're currently working in. And with a click of a button to implement best practices and methodologies to support you in every step of the hiring process. And this is what we've done with Comeet. So we're only in the beginning, but there's already so much functionality that we already provide in Comeet. And under the hood, we utilize best practices and GPT to help you with creating all of these different assets. So we see a few here as examples on the screen, from job description, scorecard, screening questions, interview questions, and so much more. And these are not just text or some assets like running something in ChatGPT. Here we actually implement those methodologies. We leverage GPT, but in the combination with Comeet's features actually allow this to become a real tool. And this is where it becomes a game changer. Because we give these tools to recruiters and managers. So take, for example, scorecards. So Comeet would help with suggesting scorecards that would follow best practices that managers are probably not familiar with. And then it would suggest interview questions for those traits that the manager selected and edited. So of course, everything can be customized in Comeet. And all of these, once the managers decides to use them and approves them, those become real tools, actionable tools. So during the interview, they can follow on these questions, rank the candidates' answers for each question, take their notes, rank the traits in the scorecards, and so on. With the pre-screening questionnaire, for example. So this becomes the actual form that candidates fill out when they apply or after they apply or submitted by other sources. And these are not necessarily things that our recruiters in our teams or managers would know how to do at that level. But of course, they are there at the steering wheel making the decisions of what to do with the AI suggestions. And that's also important to remember. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so just a little bit of background if there are people here who are not familiar with Comeet. Comeet is a provider of a recruiting platform, which is an ATS and candidate management solution. We're originally out of Israel. Our headquarters are here in New York, and we have customers across the globe. Next. Yeah, and just a quick slide. We serve many verticals. Here are some logos of our customers, great companies. Probably you're familiar with at least some of them. And what's one of the things that are unique to Comeet, the things that is unique to Comeet is the flexibility, which allows us to serve various industries and various use cases. So this is just a little bit of background, and I'll hand it to
Wait, let me do something else here. Can I?
Yeah.
I want to. A couple of people have asked this question. Let me show one other slide before we get to the poll, Bree. Can we do that? Oh, I got to break it out. I think I can show
Sounds
that.
great.
Just hold on. I'm going to just go to the one slide with the candidates on it, Tommy. So I just think it could be. And Bree, you might want to kind of, as I'm kind of horsing around here, you might want to just kind of, let me take this, unhide it, and show it. But you might want to see if there's anything in there, because I think a couple of people have asked about the question on what do I ask candidates? And I think it's such an important issue that I kind of think it's important to go through before we do the poll. So kind of, and this is what I said earlier. When I'm making an offer to a candidate, I tell the candidate, forget the money. Just before I make the offer, I said, forget the money, do you want this job? And I want to hear if the candidate, and they all say, yes, I want the job because, and I said, well, why? And most of the whys are very vague in general. But I've kind of set the stage here because when I first talked, obviously I make a candidate 3 weeks after I meet the person, I've set the stages, and I tell candidates, I'm going to, if you're a candidate who we present, and I only present 3 or 4 candidates to my client, and they always get, one of them gets hired. That's the deal I make with my client and my candidate. So there's a high probability if I present you to my client, you will get an offer. But I want you to think about the obligation. I want you to think long-term, not short-term. Yes, I understand our compensation package needs to be competitive, and I can appreciate that. But more important is where you're going, not where you're going to get on the start date. Part of it, and I would say one of the most important part, is the hiring manager whom you work for and the team you're going to be working with. If those aren't right, don't take this job, even if we give you the best pay package. As important as that is, you got to be doing work that you find intrinsically motivating. The company has to offer you, and our values, our mission, how we make decisions, our pace, all of that's got to fit in line with what you want out of a career path. You got to see this path as, hey, I can spend a couple of years here. I don't think it's a lifetime decision, but if you can't see working here for 2 to 3 years, it's probably a non-starter. Then you're just doing it for a short-term pay package. And obviously the work-life balance and all of that stuff, working from home, working at the office, all that stuff, and that's all going to be changing. But you've got to say, hey, do I want this? So I tell candidates, it's our obligation to give you this information over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks. And if we don't take our offer, even if we give you the most money, because it'll be problematic if it's successful. Now, the way I came up with this chart, I had something similar to this, but back in, I'm going to say it was right around Christmas time, somebody on LinkedIn said, should I quit my job? And I kind of quickly said, no, let me kind of make this chart, and I sent it out, and it got some reviews. So I said, if you're currently a job seeker or a recruiter or somebody, you might want to give this to everybody you know. Rank each of the factors for your current job right now on a 1 to 5 scale. And if the total is less than 12 to 14, get out of it. But don't leave unless you get an offer that's over 20. And I'd actually say, as long as the offer is competitive, put that aside. So you got 5 factors. I would say 5 times 3 to 4. It should be 18 to 20 for the non-compensation factors. If you do those things, you'll make the right career move. And I also can't prioritize these. When I see candidates prioritizing 1 and not 2 through 5, they're making a mistake. So this is a career advisory kind of a graphic as well. So it's a pretty cool graphic. I want to present it, but I also tell candidates, don't accept, you gotta, I'll restate that. We want to give you a 30% increase, but it's a non-monetary increase. Just some job stretch, some growth, some satisfaction, some impact. You do those things right, you'll be able to maximize your use of time and really take the right career decision. Bree, sorry for that. Can we put up that poll here, and I'll find that slide because I know I can't do both here.
No problem. We're gonna put up a poll here, and I'll just voice it over while Lou finds that slide. But Tommy, as we're talking about Comeet and the ATS and ATI, Jody actually had a question. She was wondering if this is already available in Comeet, the AI assistant.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything we just showed in this quick slide is available in Comeet, and maybe we can share.
Well, not performance-based hiring isn't available.
Not performance-based hiring,
part of the
true.
question.
And we'll talk about the vision of performance-based hiring in a minute. But what I showed is already available, and probably we can share in the chat a link
You want
to
go back?
an article
this?
about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'll go ahead and post the blog about what already exists. And I think Tommy and Lou will talk about the future plans of what that recruiting might look like. So we just launched a poll for everybody who's participating and here listening. You can select multiple answers. The question is, which potential benefit of the AI integration in an applicant tracking system do you find most valuable? So we'll give you, 30 seconds or so to answer this. And then we'll send out in the post email what these results look like, so you can kind of see what your peers are thinking in the industry as well. It looks like the top, just at this point, are improve quality of hiring and saving time and increasing efficiency. So great. I don't think that's a super surprise to any of us, but it's good to know as we start to build these kinds of things. We'll go ahead and move on here. So Tommy, I'll toss it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about how we see the future of recruiting and our vision for how it can all come together with performance-based hiring.
So let me kind of give, we can interact in this, Tommy. So
Absolutely.
And I think those, so
yeah, go ahead.
I have this vision of what I would call a hiring ecosystem around performance-based hiring. To me, that's different than just hiring for efficiency and hiring for the start date. It requires more work on the hiring manager's part, more work on the recruiter's part. But the idea is we're going to hire better people. We're going to raise the talent bar. We're going to achieve more win-win hiring outcomes. We don't need to spend we spend more time with fewer people, but they're the right people. I had this conversation with Tommy and Omer, who's the president of Comeet, 10 years ago. I'm going to say 2015. At the time, they were just starting, and I said, no, I can't give you. It was just kind of a preliminary conversation. So now it's 8 or 9 years later. I said, now I think we're ready. I think Comeet is a very, very strong platform. We've got an ATS, we're embedding AI, and I believe that there's a chance for what I call a true hiring ecosystem designed to raise the talent bar, improve post-hire performance, post-hire satisfaction, and post-hire success. I don't think any ATS does that. Most ATS are designed to improve efficiency and get people to fill jobs. When 140 people apply to get one person hired, that to me, it's not ATS's fault. We just live by job boards. And I'm going to say it's not the job board's fault. They want to sell job postings. But the reality is we've gamed the system, and an ATS has to now support a game system. I think I got to redirect how we hire people, develop people, and promote them for performance and satisfaction, not just to fill a job. That's the conversation Tommy and I'm having with the Comeet people, and that's what gets me really excited, because AI now makes that, I don't want to say easy, but it's a game changer in terms of making it happen. I think Comeet has taken a real lead on pulling that off. Tommy, that's my thoughts on it. What's your take?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, we always wanted, I'm really excited about giving people tools to improve the quality of the work and not just making it more efficient, which is also important, but that doesn't always affect the outcomes as much. And performance-based hiring is an incredible methodology, and it already proved that it can get those outcomes and improve those outcomes in terms of getting the right candidates who can actually achieve the job and who are better fit for the manager and the organization and are motivated, as Lou explained. And so the challenge remained with performance-based hiring because it was really time-consuming and it was difficult to implement it. But now with AI, we can make it possible. And AI, it's possible. And AI plays a critical role here. And seeing the three tied together is a real game changer. If you can just go to the next slide to talk about a little bit about the role of AI here. So as I think we mentioned some of these things, we see this vision as the role of AI here. It can really help talent acquisition leaders of any size of organization with embedding the methodologies of their choice in the organization, giving them control, but then at the same time, empowering the recruiters, managers, interviewers, and everyone else to utilize these methodologies at every step of the hiring process. Lou, any other things you want to add here?
No, I'd say it's, in fact, I'm doing another course with LinkedIn on embedding change. And I think I've kind of come to the basic conclusion is stopping what you're doing now and starting going forward is a dual challenge. But I think the bigger challenge is stopping what everybody does today and changing the way you do it. And that to me is, and I think if you've worked with, as a recruiter, worked with clients or a hiring manager, everybody feels they understand how to hire people. And yet very few agree that it's the same way. Getting everyone to agree that the same way requires a phased approach. So I think part of what Tommy and I are looking for is we want to look for volunteers who want to kind of start thinking through this process. So part of what our outreach is, hey, if you'd like to be part of trying to see what the best way to pull this off is, we'd like to chat with you. So I think, I don't know if we've kind of discussed that, but to me, that's the idea, is how do we get recruiters, managers, candidates, interviewers all in sync? And we can't forget the candidate. Most of the candidates we're talking to raise the talent bar are already fully employed. They're not the one. I mean, I'm not going to say that everybody who's actively looking isn't a strong person, but finding them is hard. So we got to have a different way of finding them. We also have to understand that these people will get multiple opportunities, but we want to put them in a best career path. So we're changing a lot of things here, but I think we're changing things for the better. And it's a difficult solution, but I think ChatGPT makes it a possible solution.
I fully agree. And the next poll that we want to take is really about that, to see what everyone thinks about this vision.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and just read it out. And then Lou and Tommy, I think that answers the bulk of the content today, but we have a bunch of questions that I'd like to throw at you. So if everybody wants to take 30 seconds to answer this poll, and then we'll get to questions. So again, if you have any questions, type them in the Q&A box. I'll read out the poll question. If you could adopt an AI-powered platform today that empowers your organization with recruiting methodologies such as performance-based hiring, would you? And we will, I'll just go ahead and read out the probably yes and definitely yes are ranked number 1 and number 2. So it does seem like this is something that's interesting. I'll actually throw a question to you, Lou and Tommy, that I've seen in the chat a couple of times. What do you think about just the resistance in this industry to AI? You know, people are really feeling like there's a lot of resistance. How do you sort of overcome that? And what would you say to those people who feel resistant to the use of AI?
Well, let me kind of answer it first. And just when I called this guy Brad up, who's running 200, has a software department, 8 or 10 directors and managers, but a huge software department, I just asked them that here's what I created for a performance-based job description. I didn't say this was AI. I mean, that was part of it. I said, but he already kind of knew. I said, hey, if you were looking for people with mid-level software, would this be good? I created it using AI. So there's no resistance at all. He just looked at it and said it. So I think if you ask the question, would you be open to prepare an AI-based product? He said, no, maybe not. So I just used it to accomplish a business task. And there was no resistance. He looked at it and said, so if I was walking to, and I'm working with another company, a big company looking for a CFO. I don't do the search, but I defined it. I just did it, but I kind of knew how to do it. And I gave it to them. They didn't know that it was AI developed. They said, this looks close. And then they edited it. So I think you can kind of set it up to create resistance or to use it in some business application and validate it that way. That's my take.
Yeah, I think the resistance is real. I talked with many recruiting managers, talent acquisition leaders, and when they're presented with the question of AI as an abstract, then they're usually like, okay, no, AI can't be part of the job or can do the job. And I think that's too high level or too general. And when it's a little vague, then yeah, of course you can trust AI here. And the approach we're taking is different. We're integrating AI into different steps of the process, and we're keeping, so there's always a user, a person who's in control, and they're leveraging AI as a tool to do their job better. And we can say from what we've seen so far with the AI assistant that we introduced, we're seeing really great usage. We're across all steps, mostly with interview questions, interestingly. Many interviewers use that to get interview questions that can help them interview better. That's challenging, and everyone needs help with that. So that's really fascinating. And again, where it becomes a real tool is not just by saving time, but by also introducing new ideas, and again, implementing these methodologies that people are not necessarily familiar with. And that allows them to do a better job.
Yeah, I think what you said there, Tommy, is when you look at it in the abstract, oh, no, I can't do it. But when you just show it, well, I'm going to do it this way. Oh, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you've kind of, and I think, so let me kind of, you said you're using for interview questions, which you absolutely can, but Kristen's asked a question here, if I can answer that very, missed the question about how I use ChatGPT to write job descriptions. So I can't, so let me kind of give a plug. Next week, I think it's next Wednesday or Thursday, I have my Hire With Your Head book club, where I'm going to show you a couple of prompts that Tommy's talking about and what Kristen asked, but I'll give you, if I can do it. But if you go to hirewithyourhead.com, you'll find our book club, and it's next week sometime. So hirewithyourhead.com would be helpful. But now, Kristen, the question I asked, and I have it written down somewhere, but I don't want to go back to the slide. It's something like this. What would be, using a one-year timeline, what would be the key performance objectives to define what a mid-level software developer needs to accomplish under a tight timeline with a team of 3 or 4 people responsible for building a new app that has to be launched globally by year end? The point is, I said a one-year timeline. I defined the key performance objectives, and I said, and I defined it with some pretty in-depth specifics, so that it was very clear what the job was. So I think that's issue. I wanted a one-year timeline. I use the words key performance objectives, so it would be outcomes and metrics. Then I define the job. Mid-level software developer working on a team of 4 people responsible for doing the architecture of the system and the user interface. Whatever that is, you have to kind of put that in. We'll get into that, how you structure the prompts properly, but that's the question is, there's resistance because you don't know how to do it. Tommy kind of said, no, we got to bring it down to ground zero, and I'm going to bring it down to not even the job itself and the actual circumstances of the job. And that's now all of a sudden you really have changed the nature of how work is even defined. I mean, it's a game changer. I get too excited about this, Tommy. I could go on for hours.
It's so great. I love it. And again, we'll be sending out this recording. So if you missed that, you'll be able to listen to Lou again, say those things, so you can actually use those prompts. Let's see what other question here. Let's take a question from Michael. Given the increase in remote/virtual workers, how is video in your practice being used for performance-based hiring, and also in Comeet? He says, in my experience, most recruiters have a 15 to 20 minute screening phone call and make decisions without a high touch or consultative approach. What's your perspective?
Tommy, you can answer that with your technology supports, and I'll. give my
So our
perspective.
technology, yeah, absolutely. So we actually have video interviews powered by Zoom built into Comeet. That means that companies can use Zoom integrated with their workflows into the process without even having a Zoom account. And it's just a really good experience for everyone, for interviewers and candidates, coupled with auto scheduling that allows to just seamlessly get the candidate through the process and get to that interview over video. Is regarding specifically the interview itself, Lou, maybe you have something to add regarding interviews.
Let me make a more general statement, then get real specific. Whenever you put a hiring process design together, in my mind, not in my mind, this is a concept that has to be bought all the time. Your hiring strategy has to drive the process design. And if your hiring strategy is to attract stronger talent, generally passive talent who are top performers who have multiple offers, anything you do has to support that vision. I want to hire this person. Now, how do you adopt video? If video interviewing allows you to do that, it's a good process. If it prevents you from doing that, then you can't use it. But I think it can be used. If you ask me how to use it, what I would do is I would probably have the hiring manager get on a video and maybe even do the video, but it's the video, and it would say, hey, I'm the hiring manager looking for a bunch of mid-level software developers. One of our key challenges, or a couple of our challenges, are A, B, and C. Kind of give a 1 or 2 minute overview. If you're interested in this role, why don't you give me a 2-minute summary of work you've done that's most related? And if I think it's a good fit, one of our people in the talent group will get back to you. That to me meets the strategy. So I think a lot of people do we got to use video interviewing. I don't know if it works or not. I got to use more knockout questions. I know that doesn't work, so don't use them. So again, it's the idea of talent strategy, which is attract the best, is our goal, not weed out the weak. Then you got to say, okay, how does that, whatever tactic I use to support that, achieve that objective or not? And I think that's the key in process design. It's a key in process design. Any product is not just talent, but to me, I think that issue, somehow we lose that issue. Is I got to fill this job quickly. I got to do more video interviews. It's a good tool. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. If I can prove that it's good, we'll make it even better. So that's my viewpoint on it.
This was excellent. Thank you, Tommy and Lou, and all of the participants. We just have 2 minutes here. Any last thoughts, Tommy and Lou, before we hop off?
Well, my last thoughts are, if I had to, somebody asked me yesterday, a recruiter in Australia said, if you were going to give advice to recruiters or talent leaders, what would it be? I said, don't make long-term decisions using short-term information. Time is your most valuable asset. Use it wisely. Don't get sucked into what you get on the start date. Get sucked into what you're going to be doing and accomplishing over the course of the first year or two.
So thank you for the conversation. We're really excited about this vision and what we can achieve using AI and performance-based hiring. I see many people who ask questions about the technology and what it can do, and I just invite everyone to check out our website. We'll also send some more details about the AI assistant and its capabilities, and there's so much more to come. I see some more questions here relating to the functionality and the capabilities of AI within the ATS. And yeah, some of those things are coming. So we're really excited about that. And we're looking forward to sharing it with everyone.
Thank you very
Expect
much.
an email
Thank you,
from
guys.
us, and have a great day. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you.